think that's all young people really need, because I do think we have the tools in us. I've always said that I don't believe that Peter Jones and Dragons Den turned me into an entrepreneur overnight. I was always me. But what you need is just somebody to come into your life to help you to get the best out of you. So when I say that, I really do mean that. I think that it's just stay focused or find somebody to help you to become the best of you. Big respect. When I get home tonight, I'll be watching Black Eyes TV 7, man. Big respect.
Celebrities that used to live right at this spot, and he was a professional boxer. Because the one thing I want to explain is like Black President, that the majority of the time we've always been here. Don't let people tell you that they've just come off a Windrush or they've just come around the corner last week. But majority of the time we've always been here. Further as back. If you have the time, go when you Google it up, just search up. This is Terry Riggs, Mr. Riggs. New beginnings, Black Eyes TV, one and only station. Check it out.
morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome, brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, to another community question time. This week's subject was born out of our previous CQT, dealing with home education. Today we will be discussing how do we create a national curriculum for us. Brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, if the facts, figures, and collective lived in experience bears witness that before the COVID conditions, Black youth were being failed by this current educational system of learning. And now in this present pandemic, there is a major concern that many children are falling behind. So we have to ask ourselves, is now the time more than ever to develop and deliver an independent, impactful learning system for our young? Joining us today are a panel of service providers and experts within the field of independent education. Our first panelist is Sister Kay Johnston, founder of the Diaspora High School and Enterprise Diamond School. Sister Kay is also an educational consultant, a literacy and special educational needs specialist, and she was recently awarded an honorary doctorate for her services to education. Welcome, Sister Kay, or should I say Dr. Kay Johnston.
Thank you. Why? I don't, I think Brother Hakeem has given the background. I mean, at the moment I work with, my interest now is working with children who are home educated, and I fill in the gaps that a lot of parents don't feel particularly confident in. And now, even more so with the pandemic, this is becoming almost like the norm, where, and I can see a number of vacancies in schools for children, parents deciding not to put their children back into schools. And so my goal is to ensure that those children have a high quality education at home. And home education looks completely different. I know that the local authorities and the DFE have got their own, vision as to what that is. But I can assure you that the home education that they get, under my supervision is as superior as any of those they would get in the best of the schools. And it's to roll that out, yes. That's me in my little corner.
Okay, thank you, Sister Kay Johnston.
Yeah.
Next is Brother David Simon, who is the founder of Simon Education. He is an educator, an award-winning author and publisher, and he has served over 14,000 families through education and established learning in mathematics, science, and Black history to raise attainment. Welcome, Brother David. How are you doing, sir?
I'm fine, thank you. Thank you for that introduction. It makes me feel important.
It's not about you feeling important. You are fundamentally important regarding the attainment of higher education for our young people.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you for the invitation. It's great to be here with the other panelists. And it's also great to be with your own community discussing something so important as the curriculum. So looking forward to today. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Our next panelist is Dr. Ornette Clennon. He is the head of online learning and director of research for Making Education a Priority, which is an organization and consortium of African and Caribbean-led supplementary schools delivering high quality education, social and cultural provisions across the Greater Manchester area. Now, there's so many strings to this brother's bow. He's been a visiting professor. He's a researcher and deliverer of critical race thinking. I mean, if I was to go through this brother's CV, it would take up half the community question time. But again, he's another heavyweight that we have on a panel. So we've got champions for you today. How you doing?
Very well, thank you. And thanks for the wonderful introduction. The money's in the post. So yeah, looking forward to getting into it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you. Our next panelist is our beloved sister, Miata Kroma, who is the director and education lead of the TAC project. The TAC project works to promote social inclusion for the public benefit by working with people of African origin and the African diaspora in the Manchester and other parts of the UK that are socially excluded. this sister works tirelessly, again, in raising the attainment and achievement of our people. So please welcome Sister Mayetta. How you doing, sister?
I'm very well. I'm so blessed to be able to contribute to this conversation today. I can't wait to get started. And I'd like to also just acknowledge that one of the reasons that I wanted to be a part of this conversation was that the question is posed, how should we create it? And not should we create it? So it's an acknowledgement that there's been so much progress.
Exactly. Thank you so much, sister. And our last panelist who will be joining us later is Brother Rio Ingram. He's based in London. He's a director of Masada Global, which is an organization developing new and innovative ways to educate and develop young people. He's also the leading trustee of the Baba Yangu Foundation, which is a UK and Ugandan-based charity that has the aim to build a living complex and school near Kampala, Uganda. So even though the brother's not here.
No, he's here, brother Hakeem. He's here.
Brother Rio, are you here? Sorry,
here.
I didn't see. How you doing, Brother Rio? You can unmute yourself, sir.
Yeah, hello everyone. Yeah, I'm really good, thank you. Yeah, thank you for introducing me. Thank you for inviting me to come today. Yeah, this is something that I'm very passionate about. I've literally been writing about this for a long time. A lot of time people I'll speak to, I'm a lot younger than a lot of the other peers here. But a lot of people in my generation don't really understand the need of, like the other sister said, to make our own curriculum. But so I'm happy to be speaking with and reasoning with people that understand the importance of this. Because I literally, what really got me into gears when I had my own first child about 2 years ago. She's 2 years old now. So I really saw that how the current educational system is here in the UK is definitely not something I'm comfortable with, allowing my child to be raised up in that. So I definitely know that, you know, if I'm not going to be involved in that system, I need to be involved in creating a new one. So, that's that's my real passion to do that. So I'm looking forward to seeing what everyone else has got to put to the table.
Thank you, Brother Rio. And it's an honor for us to have someone like yourself that's in their late 20s, and rather than sit on the sidelines, they're getting involved. So it's always an honor to have a young person that's proactive in making social change. So it's an honor to have you.
Thank you.
And if I now can introduce our next and our last young person, who is your main host for today.
As young as they get, my brother.
So
that's my introduction. My introduction is a young person. Thank you.
This is a brother that truly works tirelessly in resurrecting and reforming the minds of our young and old alike, and all oppressed people throughout Europe. He's your brother, our brother, my brother, the European regional representative of the Honourable Minister Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam, student minister Abdul Hakim Mohammed the Young. Over to you, sir.
That's the best introduction I've ever had. Thank you. I love it. You see, so warm welcoming and greetings to you all. As you can see, we like to be very light-hearted as we go forward, dealing with very complicated discussions. We like to stay soft. We like to stay light-hearted. And we like to enter into things with confidence, okay? Because we believe smiling not only keeps us young, but it shows that we are confident to achieve whatever we set out and desire to accomplish, okay? So welcome, panelists.
Thank you.
Warm welcome into all of you, and those of you who are in the Zoom, the Zoom room, welcome to you also. So panelists, I'm going to get straight to the point because time is always the enemy Sunday morning. And Brother Rio, as a young person on the line, I just want to acquaint you. When I was your age, I think I had about 3 children. And what we desired to do, in fact, 4. And what we desired to do was to start our own school. And we set it up on Angeltown Estate in Brixton. And we were at home, you know, having the same discussion as you. You know, I didn't want my children to go to institutions that destroyed me, right? And a place that I was unhappy. I hated school. I didn't like it. The teachers, as far as I was concerned, they were weirdos and they couldn't connect with me, like weirdos. They looked funny, sounded funny, and you know, they weren't my type of people. So I found it difficult to learn from someone who I couldn't relate to. So therefore, I didn't rebel. My parents were very strict, very strict. So I had to go every day because my mother would have beat the black off of my skin, unfortunately. She was not going to allow any child to have or to be a truant. You know, you couldn't not go to school, even if you weren't learning anything from the home I came from. You had to go. So anyway, in going, it was torture to be in a double history class when I was young. Torture. It was torture to be in a double maths class. Torture. Because when the teacher is on the board doing long division, you know, going down 10 steps, he lost me by the second line. So, you know, I had to painstakingly go through the other 8, right? Because it just wasn't compatible. It just didn't make any sense. So all of that to say, I didn't want that for my young. So we had a discussion with, you know, friends and my wife. And we decided to set up a school with very minimal resources on Angeltown Estate. And that grew into a very phenomenal, registered, Ofsted approved school called New Mind Preparatory. Because our idea at that time was excellence for our children. So it wasn't in protest against what was taking place. You know, most of what is taking place by way of homeschooling, just a protest movement, or is it based upon wanting the very best for our children? And as a result of wanting the best for our personal children, then that obviously leaves from our place of abode, and we want that for the community at large. So we're not just focused on home education or alternative education. We actually want to see our children play a major and significant part in the reshaping, as you mentioned earlier, the reshaping of society. So do you believe that that is the ethos of most people who homeschool nowadays? Is the idea excellence, or is it, I just don't want to go there? Start with you as the youngest person, Brother Ria.
Oh yeah, no, thank you. Yeah. I love that question, because exactly what you said is exactly what I've envisioned is that the educational system that I want to build is about creating literally the excellence and the optimal level of sovereignty for the next generation. So I feel like every single child should know how to manufacture pretty much at least most of what they are going to consume and what they're going to use.
Yes.
So in having that ability, that will allow us to actually be free, because the less we rely on having to buy or export from other groups that are not us, then the less that we're actually going to have to work for other people, and then everything that we do and produce is for our own selves and for our own benefit. So obviously, but the thing is, we don't just want to just be able to produce. We want to be able to produce at a standard by which other people will want to use our services and our products. So the only way for us to do that is for us to literally be the standard and become that optimal standard. So 100% for me, it's never been about just protesting against the current status quo, because if the current system was what I think the potential could be, then I would be happy with it. I'd be fine. Cool, it doesn't matter. But because I know that it isn't, and I clearly know that it isn't, there's so many things that we discuss all the time. When I talk to my dad's a teacher in school, one head of year. He discusses with me all the time, all the different changes that he'd want to make, but there's so much limitations on what he's able to do, because the people at the top they don't allow for that, because as most of us know, their current educational system is built as a workforce. It's built to make a workforce. That's what it's made for. It's not made to create geniuses or to create innovators and stuff like that. They have their specialist schools for that. You know what I mean? Ones that you have to pay for. You need to know certain people to go to those schools. But the main comprehensive schools, we know what it's for. I remember at school they would tell us like, oh, make sure you wear your tie like this, because when you go to get your job, that's what they're going to expect from you. So they're telling us what they want us to be. They want us to be workers, and that's the system that they've built for themselves. So for me, I know that education is fundamental in nation building. So if we're talking about building a nation, then 100% we need to control our own education, and we're going to develop the not only the skills but also the philosophy, like group economics and understanding how we're going to work together, we're going to grow together, and we're going to build together for our whole lives. You know what I'm saying? This is rather than like us going to school. When we leave school, I don't know half the people from school anymore. I go to a whole different environment and meet new people again and start again. When I go to college, start again. When I go to uni, start again. When I go to work. Rather, it should be we're all raising together, understanding that my brother that I grew up with, he's opened up his carpentry workshops. If I need stuff to do in my house, that's my brother that I grew up with. That's the person who I'm gonna turn to, and vice versa. I might be computing expert. He's gonna come to me when he needs a new computer. Do you understand what I'm saying? Yeah. So yeah, that's my vision in a nutshell. But also there's more stuff to it. But I'll allow
Sure.
some.
Fantastic, thank you. I wish I met you 21 or 29 years ago when I embarked upon starting a school, but you wasn't even born then. So
everything I get from is from the older generation, just learning.
And what's so beautiful is back in those days when we were starting out, it was difficult to find like-minded people. And it just seems such a blessing to be able to come on a forum like this and hear someone like yourself speak, because it's such a breath of fresh air, to know that this is becoming the norm. It's such a breath of fresh air. So thank you.
And to be honest, I just want to make one point on that. Really and truly, it's not even now I realize as well, especially in the past few years, it's not even just me. Like I've got like a team of, there's like 15 of us that are all, I literally, before I came on this call, I was like, everyone tell me what you want to include in it. Everybody's on that. It's like, yeah, put this point there, and we're all like-minded. We all want the same vision. I literally at my friend's house yesterday, because he just had a child, and he's talking about how he wants to build his whole schooling system and nation in Nigeria, and linking with the rest of the diaspora and all this. Like, so there's a massive team of us. So it's just, I'm just one face right now, but there's a collection of us, like, yeah, who's ready.
Very inspirational, brother. Very inspirational. Everybody who's listening to your voice, they're very blessed this afternoon.
Yeah. Thank you.
Very inspirational. So I'll be circling back to you very soon, brother Rio. So we're gonna jump over now to Sister Kay. Is it Kay? MBE? Is it? Surely they had UK on the honors list. If you haven't received it yet, I'm sure it's on its way to your post, because you've done so much for our young people. So, and as you said, now your focus is, and we've been blessed to be on several panels, but your focus now is to help those who are homeschoolers with the expertise that you have been blessed to develop. Tell me, in regards to many who you're meeting, or some of those who you're meeting,
Mute, Other Minister.
Yeah, so sorry about that. So Kay, tell me, you're meeting a lot of, give Sister Kay the opportunity to unmute, Brother Adati. So Sister Kay, you're going to use maybe the other device, Kay. When you have two devices, it starts to echo.
Yeah, that's right, because it's a bit,
Okay, shut one of them off.
Yes.
Okay, better.
Hold on.
So in regards to those who you are meeting, Sister, and who you are helping and supporting, are many focused on, you know, just trying to protest against the system, and I'm gonna do my own thing, and haven't necessarily got the skills and what it takes to actually take their children to a better place than the comprehensive institutions can take them? Are you finding a lot of this taking place, or are you coming across parents who genuinely desire excellence for their children and actually have a system in place to deliver excellence?
Yeah. Well, first of all, the educational system has not really changed over the years. The national curriculum is prescriptive, it's restricting, and as teachers, and I speak as someone who's had 41 years of experience in this country, teachers are restricted within the confines of the national curriculum. I mean, it's got to a stage where, I mean, my main subject is English. I can go into any school tomorrow, and I would be able to teach an English literature lesson because the materials have not changed. And when you're working within that kind of restriction, it ignores the wealth of resources and authors and studies out there that children could tap into. And that's why a lot of parents have decided to walk away from it, to give their children that broader experience that they can't get in schools. And and schools don't really understand that, because they think, and I speak as a teacher who's been on the other side of the desk. I'm now standing on the other side with the homeschoolers and seeing education through a completely different set of eyes. I'll take, for example, since George Floyd's murder last year, and Black history became the focus over here for most of last year. But it is still being seen by too many out there as an optional bolt-on to a history curriculum. For the curriculum to work, Black history has to transcend over a multitude of areas: maths, science, technology, art, music, drama, astronomy, philosophy. Ari will blow just about everything we've been brought up to believe out of the window. And so, moving away from the confines of the national curriculum gives me a chance to be able to provide that kind of a view for those families and those children who want to see, because Black history actually fills in the gaps that are left out of everything. And if we're to have a curriculum, for it to work, young people need to see people who look like them, who are leading on it, are able to deliver it, and they can see some means to an end. So, because, for example, traditionally in year 9, at the end of year 9, children choose their options. And you get children who will choose options because they like the teacher, their friends are doing it, there's nothing left. It's the easiest thing. And they end up with a set of subjects that don't hang together, they're leading to nowhere. When they're being home educated, it gives them the chance to really think, and you have that conversation with your children as to what it is that you would like to do. And then you start putting those things in place for them so that they begin to see a meaning to the education that they've got, and where it's leading to. It's easier with dealing with the smaller numbers, which is why I'm always an advocate for smaller size schools. It's easier dealing with them to get the mentors in place, or the employers of their aspiration in place, so that they can see what the real world looks like. They don't have to wait until they're in year 11 to do so. They can do that at 11 years old. So for me, working with those who are being home educated has opened my eyes to a lot of things that are missing in the current education system.
Okay, thank you very much for that, sister. And we'll be looking forward to circling back to drill down on some of the things that you've just mentioned. So Sister Miata, please, you know, weigh in on this conversation in regards to what's your view in regards to protest versus the pursuit for excellence, because you can, you know, withdraw from something because it's abusive and then go back into something else that is equally abusive, right? So we're saying the educational system, it doesn't meet our needs. Well, if we pull our children out and we start home educating and we're unable to meet their needs, you know, are we actually doing anything that is productive if we're not focused on a higher level of achievement, a higher level of accomplishment? What is your view? Are you finding people are more in a protest spirit, or is it just, I'm going to do this, not necessarily because of what happened, you know, with George Floyd or any racism or this, that, and the other? It is this educational system is not bringing the best out of you, but I can do it. And I have a methodology in bringing the best out of these precious children that I have brought on the planet. Is that the kind of, is that the kind of orientation of mind, you know, a pursuit for excellence, or is it protest?
I think whenever parents decide to do something alternative to the mainstream, it is through love and commitment to their children, because I mean, it's not the easy way.
In every day, Sister Miata?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you very clearly, and we can hear you very clearly. Do you think that's the case on generally across the board? Like, for instance, let me give you a for instance. If it wasn't for lockdown, okay, where schools were closed, would most parents be home educating their children?
Well, no, because of the fact that I've just said it's not the easy way out. It's financially tasking, it's time tasking, and a lot of people are probably, what my experience with parents is they overestimate the amount of knowledge they're going to need in order to embark on homeschooling their children. And so, yeah, no, I do believe, from my experience and the parents that I've spoken to, it is through commitment to their children and wanting excellence for them. In terms of what mainstream offers, I think that one of the issues is the assumption is that Black children are just white children who happen to be Black. And so the logic there is, if they have the same access to education that white children have, then it will be of benefit to them. That assumption is completely wrong. And for nothing else other than the fact that I think it's quite insulting to our children's intelligence. They are aware, they have awareness of their environment. They're aware that then they don't have access to resources that are representative of them. They're aware that they don't have access to teachers who look like them. And the trauma that happens, I think that where a lot of people become demoralized with the education system, happens in that space between being aware of their environment, but not completely understanding why things are happening the way that they are. And so I feel like parents who do decide to homeschool their children look for an alternative. And there are many alternatives, and that's the message that I want to come with today. My organization is very good at promoting and highlighting and making visible the institutions that already exist. And in fact, the curriculums that already exist that support our needs specifically. I believe that's why parents decide to homeschool their children, and it is through a commitment, and it is a commitment to do it in an alternative way.
Okay.
Do we say?
Much appreciated. Thank you for that insight. So, Brother David, Simon, you have been doing this, you know, forever and a day. You know, you have so much experience in not just homeschooling and setting up alternative methods by which parents from a plethora of different backgrounds will be able to engage and do justice to their children. how do we move from just homeschooling because we're forced to do it now, because we're engaged in lockdown, the schools are closed. So regardless to the difficulties, we've got to face them. But by way of having a conscious and deliberate approach to homeschooling based upon a general curriculum that we need to put together that will lead our children to perpetual excellence. What sort of mindset, Brother David, do we need to have in order to extract our children from the mainstream education and tie them to a curriculum that will actually bring the very best out of them? What needs to be done? Brother Odati, we need to allow David to unmute.
Okay, thank you. Are you hearing me now?
Thank you.
Okay, good. Well, I think in terms of homeschooling, it's given us an opportunity. The homeschool movement has really kind of come out of the Saturday school movement as well, I think. And so the two are kind of like, running simultaneously. But I think both are really struggling. And I ran a Saturday schools. I ran a network of Saturday schools for 25 years. We've been going for 34 years now. And we've got to, I think, mesh them or marry the two and develop a curriculum, not only around homeschooling and Saturday schools, but also around community empowerment of our community. We need to set up, I think, an infrastructure. So we need to have teacher training. We need to have parent-teacher programs, community education programs, support the young people themselves in being peer teachers. So we need to set up a whole infrastructure. And there is good practice in the community, but it's here, there, and everywhere. Once we almost kind of like do an audit around that, then we've got the seed of a curriculum. And that curriculum will empower, because the curriculum at the moment, the national curriculum, is so based on individualism, it disempowers the wider community. And individualism has always worked against us. We as a people who've been here for 250,000 years as Homo sapiens sapiens, we've been collective. So we've really got to kind of like relook at everything critically, not seek to imitate anything. And once we look at good practice in the community and we set up this infrastructure, then we can start. And I think, I think last time I was on your question time here, I said, we probably need like a 10-year transition. Now, in a sense, we don't have that time. Some parents, watching this will say, well, we don't have 10 years, but we need to do things in stages. And I think the first thing we need to do, and you mentioned about this curriculum, is do an audit. What works? From going back from the time when we had some of your older listeners remember Len Garrison, who set up the ASA report, using Black history as a tool for our education. We need to, look at that, conduct research, conduct an audit, piece together what we have. And from those good practice, then we can build a curriculum. But that curriculum, it must allow for the community to be involved. Because at the moment, the curriculum that we have is saying to the community, you are not a qualified teacher, you can't be involved. You are not an accrediting body, you can't be involved. But and I think, I said this last time, is that we've got to be looking at 5 key teachers in our community. The parent teacher, well, the classroom teacher, obviously, the parent teacher, the community teacher, the peer teacher, the digital teacher, even the self teacher for our young people. They can teach themselves. And once we get a curriculum that's diverse and flexible and mobile, and everybody's got a vested interest in it, that's the start. But we have to also acknowledge that we need to be trained as a community. We are untrained. So we're doing a little program here, a little program there. We're not seeing the bigger picture and where we're trying to lead our young people to, where we're trying to unlock their genius. What does that mean? Give them power. The curriculum that we really need to be developing is one, as Amos Wilson, one of our great scholars, has said, it's about power.
Okay, thank you, Brother David. So, Dr. Ornette, you've heard what everybody has said thus far. And if our motivation is going to be excellence and to produce a crop of young people who will build a much more advanced civilization for us going forward, tell me, what's the beginning of the mindset, or what's the fundamentals of the mindset that we as parents need to have in order to move away from that which really has been and is debilitating regarding our children? We know we're not going to reach the highest echelons of society based upon the lack of quality in the education that's on offer. You know, it's like educational pork, right? So if we look at meat, you know, what we're receiving, I don't mean to mess with anybody's bacon, but when we look at the quality of the education, it's the poorest kind of education, is it not, that we are exposed to? So tell me, if many of us as parents are just trying to make it through the day and teach our children 12 times 12, what's it going to take to get us to be focused on excellence? Because I'm convinced that we're not all involved in home education because we want our children to enjoy excellence. For instance, if we're in the United Kingdom, the greatest academic achievement a young person can have from an academic perspective is to end up at Oxford or Cambridge, I would imagine. Yeah. Now, how many of us are preparing our children for Oxford and Cambridge so that they can extract the very best of what this country has to offer if we intend to be in this country until our children are at university level? Are we thinking like that? Are we just trying to get our children through the next few years or so, or to make sure they have some African education, some Black history? Is that enough?
So many issues to unpack there. So the first thing I want to do is just interrogate the word excellence. So what is it what do we mean by that? Do we mean excellence in achieving the best we can within the present system, which sort of then leads into a kind of more individualist take on the present system? So if we mean excellence in terms of sending our kids to Oxbridge, that means then we're anticipating them getting the top jobs, because that's why we would want to send them to Oxbridge. So is that what we mean by excellence? For me, no, I don't see excellence as being that or Oxbridge. For me, the first stage we need to kind of really think about is, what is the purpose of the education that we are wanting to deliver to our children? So I was struck by Rio when he said that education is about nation building, which is true. And if we look at the UK and the West in general, we can see that there's colonialism. We have a colonial education, which was set up to manage empire, and it's still. So when Rio was talking about the workers, and we are just trained to be workers, of course we are, because we were just trained to sort of develop and the wealth of empire back in the day. So for me, education has to be about looking at what is the alternative system. What is the alternative to the present system? So there has to be a kind of philosophical aim or target or objective to education. Now, this alternative to the system has been really sort of wrecking our brains for well over 100 years with the Pan-Africanist movement, because what is the alternative to capitalism? So we can talk about cooperative economics, so we can talk about economic systems, but economic systems serve moral and social systems, not really the other way around. So what moral and social systems do we actually envisage for our children? Now, in order to kind of even begin to get there, as David was saying, we do need to train our parents, we need to train our teachers up with the skills to be able to use the resources, because having a database or even having a curriculum, but let's just say a database of resources isn't actually enough. It's how do you use the resources? How do you use the resources to encourage critical thinking so that not only our young people can navigate the system the best way they can to uplift themselves and their communities, but also think about creating a totally new system based on equity and social justice. So we need teachers who are skilled at being able to teach our children the critical thinking needed to use these resources that we're talking about. And then once we manage to do that, then we're then encouraging our children to re-envision a new system. Because right now they're embedded within a capitalist individualist system. So, and I think as a home educator, as a parent, or as a community educator, I think we need to orientate ourselves in terms of trying to think of what are the alternatives, what visions do we have as a community, and then we can try and fashion those pedagogical tools to encourage our young people to not only access that vision, but make that vision come true in their lives generationally. So it's quite a complex thing, really, isn't it? Multi-layered.
I love your answer. You covered so much. I tried to make the question as complicated as I could, but you seem to have navigated your way out of it. So tremendous skill, and I'm appreciative. So I'm going to go to the next point now. I'm going to come to the audience. I'll come to you soon. But I just need to unpack a few points that we need to establish. Russ Hoshig, Brother Paulus, I'm going to come to you. I'm just going to finish a couple of.
Sorry, brother.
Can you
hear me? Hello.
Yeah, brother Hakeem.
Yes, sir. Before you go into a next point, can I just throw out something in reference that was just said, just so again the panelists can view it from this perspective. Can I do that?
Sure.
Okay. So Brother David mentioned the brilliant author Amos Wilson, and yeah, he did write a book called The Blueprint for Black Power. And Brother Amos Wilson dedicated a section and a chapter in that book regarding one of the best institutions that has the blueprint for a learning program and curriculum for nation building is the Nation of Islam. Because the curriculum and learning development must be tied into nation building, and nation building must be tied into the curriculum. There's also a global European organization called the World Economic Forum. Every year they release its global competitiveness report regarding the state of world's economies. Now, the WEF looks at data in areas that cover the stability of banks, the development and growth and sophistication of business and economies and nation building of that country. They also, believe it or not, look at that nation's curriculum and how it feeds into that. So countries are ranked according to the 12 pillars of competitiveness, which includes how their educational system and curriculum has directly helped to develop the macroeconomic environment, infrastructure, health, primary education, and labor market efficiency of that country. The schooling data looks at which countries have the best educational systems that build their nation. Now, the top ranking 11 countries does not include the United States nor the United Kingdom. People may be surprised. Now, this was a report that was published in 2017. People may be surprised that the 11 countries. Number 1 was Finland. Number 2 was Switzerland. Number 3 was Belgium. Number 4 was Singapore. Number 5 was the Netherlands. Number 6 was Qatar. Number 7 was Ireland. But also, they also put in a report, bear in mind that Ireland stopped and fell behind because it fell it fell behind 50% regarding its budget that it was given over to its education. Number 8 is Estonia. Now, there was a grouping of 3 countries for number 9, which is New Zealand, Japan, and wait for it, Barbados. So big up my fellow Asians out there. Because Barbados the government heavily invested in its educational system, resulting in a literacy rate of 98%, which is one of the highest in the entire planet. And that literacy rate and that development program was again for it to build its economy. Now, South Korea and China are also starting to make the list. So I'm saying all that and putting all that forward to the panelists, because I know we're thinking about home and local, but you know how it is, you know our saying, we may function local, but we also got to think global. So if there are curriculums that are out there that steer the individual learner and the collective learners to nation building, should we also be looking at them as an example and going back to the first point of Amos Wilson and Brother David quoting him or referencing him, in his blueprint for Black Power? Should we just look at what's already been established and build on that?
Sure. Well, let me just finish up these points. Great point, brother. Brother Paulus, I'm going to have to come to you after I finish up with these panelists. So bear with me and be patient with me, Brother Rush Hoshing. Be patient. Sister Kay, I just need to ask you in regards to what is the ultimate, because we're here to discuss an alternative curriculum today and what that curriculum would look like, and who's really qualified to help to construct such. So because of time, if everybody can just give me as succinct answers as you possibly can, what is the ultimate goal of a curriculum that if we was to structure it, how would we be able to stress test it to determine whether it is successful or not? I'm going to go back again to the highest level of accomplishment in the United Kingdom where we live, whether it's homeschooling, whether it is comprehensive schooling, whether it's private schooling, is for your children to end up in Oxford or at Cambridge, or not Edinburgh as such, but more Oxford and Cambridge. These are the flagship universities of the United Kingdom. Is a marker of success. And if not, please tell me what would be the marker of success to determine that we've educated our children well. Is it based upon what university they go to, or the quality of the business they are able to establish without going to university? What is the quintessence of educating a child in the United Kingdom, independent of the schooling system? You're on mute.
Mute. First of all, I make it quite clear. What I say to parents who just started on their home education route is that the moment you've stepped away from mainstream, you're no longer in competition with mainstream. So no point stressing yourself as to that you need to be doing with your child at home what they would be doing in school, because the competition is no longer there. Children develop at different rates, and they must be allowed to be given that time and space when they've moved away from the stress of the sausage factory. Now, an interesting point about university, Oxford or Cambridge, that unless you have got the connections, your parents have got the connections for, which they start putting in place while they're still at Oxford and Cambridge, you can come out with a first-class degree and still not be able to find a job. What we need to be looking at is the skills gap. The skills gap in any particular country or here in the UK. And we start having conversations with our young people, because they've been so conditioned to thinking they've got to go to school and then to college and on to university. And with the best will in the world, not every child will get there. So in order to eradicate these feelings of unworthiness or not being good enough, we have to dispel this myth that they must go to university in order to succeed. So we're looking at the skill gap, we get mentors in those areas, and then we start working with those young people so that the mentors, if they're introduced, let's say from the age of 11, and the mentors that I have in mind actually co-parent because they're there for the long haul to see that young person through, right through until they're ready for their first job.
But if we just pause on the methodology to get to the ultimate objective, I just want to tease out of you, what is the ultimate objective? Like, what can I say if I'm a homeschooler or a home parenter, and I'm parenting, I'm teaching my children at home, or I've taken them out of mainstream education? What is the marker I can use to determine that I've done a good job at the end of that process?
Okay, first of all, that they're enjoying their home education. They're literate, numerate. You expose them to a wide range of experiences that being in school does not allow you to do. Going, seeing places, you know, okay, we're in lockdown now, so most places are closed, but yeah, when lockdown is finally over, yes, going out there and experiencing the life of, you know, classroom without walls is just absolutely mind-blowing.
Okay.
And
Well,
to see the different possibilities that there are out there.
Okay. Well, thank you for that, Sister Kay. Rio, what is the ultimate goal of everything you and your co-parents and those you're working with are working on? What is the ultimate goal? What is the medal of honor? What are you striving to achieve, to say to yourself and be able to look back, look in the mirror and say, the decision I made to homeschool my children and pull them away from mainstream education, I'm justified, I'm vindicated because I've achieved thus. What is the end game?
Well, yes, so I'll say in a nutshell, the end game is, first of all, for everybody to understand that they're all part of one body. So say for example, all of us here in this education system, all of us will see ourselves like cells or organs of the same body. So everything.
Oxford, hold on a minute, it's not Oxford or Cambridge or Harvard or the Sorbonne in Paris. What is the ultimate destiny? Because I get the feeling and I get all of that, but if we're looking at here now, and the reason for our discussion is to try to craft a curriculum that you can use in your home, somebody else can use in a school, or somebody else can use in a tent or wherever they are, but there is a national curriculum or international curriculum that we as original people can pull upon to say, if your child, you know, engages with this curriculum, you know, it will bring thus out of them.
Can I jump in? Can I?
So what is the ultimate?
Yeah, can I jump in there? So the ultimate cannot be Oxford or Cambridge. The ultimate cannot be for higher education. The ultimate has to be, what sort of life has the child attained? Can the child, when the child grows up, can it, is it independent? Does it have a job, family? Is it happy? Is it critically thinking? Is it connected to its community? These are the broader issues that education is there to provide, not going to Oxford or Cambridge. Oxford and Cambridge are just universities that led empire. Why do we want to?
But Dr. Ornette, please, yes. I need you. I'm going to go back to Rio. I'm going to big Brother Paulus, because I'm going to come to you. Be patient.
Okay.
I'm coming to you.
Okay. Okay.
Coming to you.
The Sunday vibe is leaving me, so I'll chill out again.
Yeah, because Rio, I need something tangible. Okay.
Okay.
Because we're pushing people now, not necessarily for a conveyor belt, but we have to have that end result. You know, we're in this to achieve something. If it's not Oxford, if it's not Cambridge, if it's not Harvard, if it's not one of these big internationally renowned universities, and Brother Hakeem mentioned Finland, he mentioned Malaysia, Singapore, he mentioned other countries, and these countries obviously have major universities and colleges, okay, but more universities, because I think it's less than 1,000 of our young people end end up in university in this country. Now, if less than 1,000 of our people, our children end up in university in this country, are we missing something? If we were able to have 20,000, or the majority, 60% of our young people who were graduating from school, if they were going into university, would we still be having this problem? Is there something that we're actually missing that's in front of us that we can actually, extract greater benefit from? Because if we're going to put together an independent curriculum, and that's what we're here to discuss, what does that curriculum lead to that we can all celebrate at the end of that, the term of education? Brother Rio, back to you.
Yeah. So I think 100% it should lead to every graduate having the ability to manufacture what is beneficial for themselves, their family, and their community, and to deliver that at the highest level, to compete with the people that you're talking about. Like, for example, if we get a lot of our manufacturing goods from China, our children should be able to, when they graduate, they should be able to.
Where are they going to learn this, Rio? Where are they going to learn to be captains of industry? That's my point, because Oxford, Cambridge, Harvard, they teach you how to be captains of industry, how to run these big corporations tomorrow. I want to know what is going to be our place of destination, Brother David. Where are we going to somewhat, rubber stamp our children, that they will be able to.
I can answer that. I can answer that. So,
okay.
So the basis by which we're going to receive that information is by, of course, turning to the ones whoever's the master of the craft. They should be the one who is the teacher of the next. They're going to be one who produce the next generation of masters.
What about if they're
so our standard?
What about if they're European?
It doesn't matter if they're European.
Okay.
We need to just have what Brother David mentioned about having the teachers of this. We have to do our own teacher training. So we need to make sure that every single one of our teachers is a master and a practitioner in this whatever field that they are teaching. They should be a master in that field. I say, for example, if we was teaching business, we should have a business tycoon as being he should be.
If I ask you to choose, give me one who you would recommend would be a great exemplar in this particular area that we can point our young people to who is interested in business as a part of our curriculum. So, for instance, if we wanted somebody to write the business aspect of how to succeed in business and how to segue into business, who would you recommend if you had a wish?
Do you mean it's just anybody, like just not thinking about if they have to be melanated or not, or just anybody? Do you mean?
Okay, who's an achiever? Yeah. So David, then I'm going to come to you, Russ Hoshing. Just hold on. I'm going to come to you after David. David, Rush Hoshing, you got to allow me to deal with my panel first of all. These are my panel. They come first. Okay, so allow me to do that. Okay, because that's I come in and I crush the party, so. So hold on, and I'll come to you. So David, please, what's the end goal? Like, you've been teaching children for decades of time. What makes you say to yourself, I have been successful navigating this young child through home education or alternative education, through the Saturday schools? What, do you feel a sense of vindication if they go to Harvard, if they go to Oxford or Cambridge or Edinburgh? What makes you feel that you have achieved your objective?
Well, I think
we're going to set up a curriculum, which we want to do. What will give us the level of satisfaction that we have a successful curriculum because we have been able to achieve thus? What is the thus?
I think realistically, our children, we should hope that our children experience two curriculums. Obviously, here in the UK, we have the national curriculum. Whether we like it or not, we have the national curriculum. And our children have to go to university, become a doctor, become a teacher, become an architect. But there's still so much more that we need to embed in them to become powerful human beings, so that they become the catalyst in our community to address issues that perhaps in our generation or my generation, we won't be able to address for a while. And that's the second community curriculum, the curriculum of empowerment, which I think I've been looking at the chat, and some people have been saying they've been working on this curriculum. We need a curriculum of empowerment that really empowers all of us, so that we, I mentioned, us becoming parent teachers, community teachers, etc. So that what happens is that, yes, they can become a doctor, but will they be a doctor who comes back to their community, serves their community, or will they be someone who goes and lives outside their community, marries outside their community, and we never see them again? So all that investment doesn't really amount to much for
Right.
others. So if you end up, and as I mentioned, we started 34 years ago, and I recently attended an event where we had young people who I taught 30 years ago, 25 years ago, and they came up to me and they said, "Thank you so much." And obviously I couldn't remember them. And I said, "It's great to see you." They said, "Yes, I'm now one of them said they're now a marketing expert." But she said, "Thank you so much for the Black history you taught me." But it was more than Black history. Black history is an umbrella term. She was really saying, "Thank you for giving me a sense of self," because she was actually taught by my sister, a Black woman, obviously, who mentored her, schooled her, taught her, from algebra, English, etc. So we need this second, at the moment, we really do need this second curriculum, so that we fill in all, and these are, gigantic gaps, so that our young people are empowered, our young people can engage in nation building. But nation building is both complex and it's dependent on sense of self. And once they have that, so the end game is that you get a young person who is qualified in something. It doesn't have to be academic, it's qualified in something that will help the economy, help their families, etc. But have a strong sense of self and have a responsibility to others in our community.
Okay, thank you. Rush Hoshin, you wanted to weigh in on this.
Sorry, blessings to you all. Before I start, I'd like to say in the presence of the Most High, the Supreme Creator, blessings to our people right across earth. Now, the reason why I keep on trying to intervene, because our connection here in Jamaica keeps on going. So it's not that I'm being impatient. Now, first and foremost, education can only come when you connect to your spirituality. Your spirituality is the foundation that creates your history, literature. That is your education. Education of European was to enslave and maintain their enslavement of the enslaved. So therefore, their system was never intended to liberate us and to empower us. It is only there to educate you to their system. So when you speak of what is missing from the African must connect to his spirituality. Teach our young children what is our spirituality, the gods that we pray to. That is what creates the fundamental needs that brings forth great human beings. Because once you connect our children to their African spirituality and define it, education of our history, our literature, that is all that's missing. So what I'm hearing, too many of our peoples, my beloved brothers and sisters, are so Eurocentrical, conditioned and educated that they keep on thinking you can use that to solve the Black man problems. You cannot. It was we that created all systems.
Yep.
And every enslaver created his system to make sure that he maintains his superior position. You do not see the Chinaman marching in London. You don't see the Indian or any nation. It's only the black man, because why? He hasn't got a spiritual foundation. That is why in this time, the Nation of Islam has defined it, because the Nation of Islam has taken on the full academical reality, but they've also made sure you have a faith, because without a faith, your education, as what Brother Simon was saying, you will be living up, you want to go and live amongst the white aristocracy, because you feel you went to Oxford, you went to Cambridge amongst them, so your education will only bring you into that system. Without your spirituality, my brothers and sisters,
you're nothing.
Your education is just subjugating you to their system. And it doesn't matter whether you have a PhD or whatever it is. If you don't have a spiritual African consciousness, you will always betray Mother Africa with your education, which is based upon European supremacy, capitalism, and the so-called elite classes.
Thank you for that, thank you for that, Brother Paulus Rashoshi from Jamaica. He's calling in from Kingston, Jamaica.
Remember, Brother Atkins speaks of Barbados. Jamaica has the highest educated from our university, our system, but they do not mention we. Why? Because 78% every year of our university graduate, Canadian companies, American companies, they all come to Jamaica, and we have not a brain drain, we have a brain whirlwind of our people, and that's a fact.
Thank you,
so
brother.
If you start to link with the Jamaican system, why do we produce so high level of intellectuals? Because we have a culture that inspired our people. And the only thing that is missing, our spiritual connection that is now galvanize that culture. So we do have it. We do not need to reinvent the wheel, my brother.
Thank you.
We don't need to do that.
Appreciate you. Thank you, brother. So I'm going to go to, on that note, I'm going to come back to you. I'm going to build on that. Sister Miata, so in regards to the curriculum, what place does spirituality play in us having an international? Sister Maureen, you're going to have to be patient with me until we're going to the audience. We're not at that time yet, so please be patient. Your hand is noted, and give us about an extra 15 minutes, and then we'll go to the audience, okay? So, Sister Miata, what role does spirituality play in this international curriculum that we need to construct so that we can be in a better place in the next generation than we are at this current time? Does spirituality have a place to play?
Yes, I believe it does. I want to chime into the first question just quickly about the ultimate goal of education. For me, the ultimate goal is to produce children, or to spark a curiosity in children through education that eventually leads them to solve the problems that we have in the future. When I left school, actually it was only a year ago, I think I'm from Liberia, West Africa originally. And it was only a year ago that I realized that Liberia doesn't produce rice. And it's significant because in Liberia, we consume the most amount of rice. It's very typical for us to eat rice, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And for us to not produce our own brand of rice is quite shocking, I think, in 2021. And so leaving school with not understanding the issues and problems, whether it be agricultural, medical, technological, back home, I think is a waste of an education. So it's chiming back into what Rio was saying in terms of nation building, manufacturing. then to add to what David Simon was saying about identity, that will be informed by being taught how to solve our problems, but from an African perspective. So if we're talking about developing ways of solving our issues, in terms of agriculture, if you notice, African people are very, very well versed in producing solutions that are natural and don't cause harm to the environment. Whereas I think it was Marimba Ani who says that we think in a cyclical way. So we understand that there's a connection and there's something that's going to come after us. And so that's how we need to perform on the planet.
Okay.
Whereas, sorry.
No, thank you for that. I just want to jump in a second, just as you mentioned, brother Dr. Ornette, I just want to ask him a quick question, but thank you for what you just shared with us. I just want to ask, and going back to the spirituality, which to me, I think is exceedingly important. If you look at the statistics of overseas foreign students who attend Oxford, Cambridge, Harvard, Yale, many of them are Chinese and are from the Far East. And they are able to extract the best of what America has and go back to China and build their companies to be stronger, and more innovative. Every population or nation are able to send their children to the best universities around the planet and extract what they need and go back home and strengthen their countries. Why is it, if it's not a spiritual disconnect where we are concerned, why is it wherever we go, we get co-opted, and taken over by whatever the environment is? Why is it? If we go into Christianity, we want to be white people. We go into Islam, we want to be Arabs. What is it? We go into education, we want to be Caucasian people or members of the elite. What is it about us that is going to stop us, that even if the best education is given to us, what's going to stop us from receiving the best education and giving it away to others and not bringing it back to serve? Because in order to become a doctor in Cuba, one of the prerequisites of studying medicine in Cuba is to take the knowledge back to whatever community you're from, and you can receive free education in regards to being trained as a doctor. So what is it, Dr. Ornette, that we're going to have to instill in our young people fundamentally to afford them the opportunity to appreciate patriotism? What is it?
So before I answer that, just to say that 44.5% of our young people from our communities attend university. So it's more than 1,000. And yet underemployment is around twice that of their white counterparts. So university, even though from a university background myself, I would say that it's really important to have a university education. This type of university education isn't helping our young people. So, perhaps another discussion, we need our own Black university, which I guess ties into the curriculum. And just before I answer that question, Oxford and Cambridge, they prepare their children from prep school, so from they're about 7 onwards, to go into that system through private school, independent school, through to Oxbridge. So even if we get our however many A stars to get into Oxbridge, we're still at a huge disadvantage, because all of those networks that you actually go to Oxbridge for, you don't actually go to Oxbridge for a degree, by the way. You go there for the networks to allow you to enter those sectors of industry, as you called it, captains of industry.
Exactly. And brother, Dr. Ornette, be clear that I'm not advocating.
No, I'm just saying that.
Hold on a minute.
Yeah.
In the context of 1,000 of young people going to university, this is to study nation building courses as opposed to hairdressing, or one of these types of courses that really don't change the reality of our people. Media courses, some of these courses that some of us are studying, our children are studying, as you know, they're not nation building courses. So to get into the engineering and the science and the real, nation building courses.
All yeah, all university courses are nation building courses if the child, the young person, comes out with critical thinking skills. And that's the point of going to university and the education system leading up to it. And we in mainstream education, particularly from the African diaspora, we're not encouraged to develop those critical thinking skills, because once we start questioning, then we're labeled as troublemakers and all of those problems that are kind of put onto us. So it's about critical thinking to enable us to really critique the system and rebuild a new system rather than being indoctrinated by this system that we're in, which is the big problem with our young people. To answer your specific question about the spirituality. So for us in MEEP, we use Ubuntu as a pedagogy that kind of wraps around our teaching, because it's based on social justice and looking, and for us as an African diaspora and African-led supplementary schools, racial justice and social justice. Which includes knowing about your history, which includes knowing about the knowledge that comes from our different cultures, because we are spread around the world, we are a kind of global diaspora, knowing about all of that to kind of help us understand identity, understand how to achieve justice and racial justice, which for us is about equipping the children to be able to do the best in the education system. And as David was saying, they have to coexist with the mainstream education system to get qualifications in order to get jobs, but also looking at enterprise. So it's not always just about going to university, it's about those skills, those creative skills that equip young people to form their own businesses that help their own families, but also uplift their communities.
Okay.
So,
thank you for that, brother. In the interest of time, we're going to have to go to the audience, but I want to circle back to you, brother Rio, and I want to come back to you also, brother David. For you to just, before we go to the audience, I want you to just categorically tell me the importance of having spirituality as a spine, if you will, going through whatever we teach, because we seem to lack this stickiness that can go through this bloodstream that needs to go through everything we teach. Is spirituality the missing link in much of what we do? A lack of it from an Afrocentric perspective.
Can I just come in quickly on that one?
Very quickly then, Kay, because I'm going to go to Rio. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. Right now, I start every day with a mindfulness session, because I give an affirmation every day, and we start with a mindfulness session because I think it's important for grounding oneself. I'm going to read here because some of the affirmations come from people who wise words that people have said around it. But I've got here one from Nelson Mandela that I feel should be in every classroom around the world, but particularly where our children are. And it's called encouragement. It says, our deepest fear is not that we're inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You're a child of God. Your playing small doesn't serve the world. There's nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We're all meant to shine as children do. We're born to manifest the glory of God that is within us. It's not just in some of us, it is in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we're liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. And I absolutely love this because this is what it's all about. It's giving children that sense that they are equal to everybody else, regardless of whether you're born into poverty, whether you're born into wealth, whether you're black, you're white, you're brown, you're
Kay, isn't that Kay? Just pardon me. Isn't that the responsibility of a parent? Though? Should somebody need to come to school to learn that they are equal to everybody else?
Yes,
and in some cases they are actually superior.
Yes.
In some cases. So I think sometimes we seem to be a lot on the defensive, as if we're trying to justify that which we should be doing as a natural, level of responsibility, or taking a natural level of responsibility. So I'm going back to the spiritual thing. Right? What is it, Rio, that we can introduce as our international curriculum from a spiritual perspective to ground all of our children, as Sister Kay just said, mindfulness, being grounded. What is it that we can teach, that we can agree upon from a spiritual perspective, so that we can teach English, we can teach science, we can teach technology, we can teach engineering and business and all of these things, but from a spiritual perspective? What is it that
inner voice? It's listening to the inner voice, intuition.
Thank you, Sister Kay. So Rio,
okay,
take yourself off mute. What is it that we're missing?
Basically, like I do intense study in different religions and cultures around the world. Yeah. So one thing that I've been able to see is that, especially when you study language, you actually see that there's a lot of connections between different expressions of how we connect to the Creator. That actually people are connected in ways that they don't even realize, because they haven't explored like a panoramic view of these different expressions of directly connecting with the Creator. Ultimately, 100%, my journey, I definitely wouldn't have got to be in a position to talk to you fine people if I hadn't had a spiritual awakening and a spiritual journey that brought me to the understanding that the main spiritual foundation that has to be installed is that we have to view ourselves as one with each other. So, for example, if there's a child in Nigeria who's suffering and he doesn't have the most basic foundations, I should be at such a spiritual level that I feel his pain as if it's my pain. You understand what I'm saying?
Because for instance, let me give you a for instance. When we would teach our children in, say, one of our universities in the Nation of Islam, we teach them the knowledge of themselves. That's first and foremost. And we teach them that you are a God. Not that you're a prophet or a messenger, you are a God. And you're a child of the Most High God. You have the divine supreme being's blood running through your veins, okay? So because you're a God, your curriculum must be predicated upon knowing your Father's universe. And your Father's universe is everything. So the earth on which you stand, you got to know how much it weighs. So we teach our young people that the earth weighs 6 septillion tons a unit, followed by 21 ciphers. We teach them that your father put that sun out there, and that sun that your father put out there is 93 million miles from the earth. And it strikes the earth at its equator, causing it to rotate at 1,037 1/3 miles per hour. And we teach some of our little children who are very talkative. You talk a lot, and you're very blessed to be one who can articulate yourself, but you need to know how fast sound travels. And we teach them that sound travels at 1,120 feet per second. We teach them that light travels at 186,000 miles per second. When we're teaching them geography, we're teaching them about the highest mountain, or we're teaching them about Mount Everest. It's 29,141 feet high. So we educate them about their planet. We educate them about their universe. We teach them that thought travels at the rate of 24 billion miles per second. We teach them that the walls of the universe is 76 quintillion miles. So with a young person who is under 5, being able to know that the Earth is 57,255,000 square miles, and the total area of the land and water of the planet Earth is 196,940,000 square miles. When my children were 5, they could recite these things. So when a child can speak in millions and trillions and septillions at 5, then it's very difficult for someone to intimidate them. Do you understand what I mean? It's very difficult for you to put that genie back in the box when you teach them from a biblical perspective, where the Bible says that from one blood came all human beings. Well, if from one blood came all human beings, what was that one blood? It couldn't be Caucasian, because if it was Caucasian people couldn't copulate for 1 million years and produce yellow, much less brown, much less black. But in the original people, we had the ability to produce albino children. So from 2 jet black people, we can produce brown, we can produce yellow, we can produce red, we can produce white. So that stamps out inferiority from their baby. You see what I mean? But what I would say is all of that is rooted in spirituality, in the knowledge of self. Because if the person doesn't know self, they will go into business and become rich. But what they're going to do with their money? What are they going to do with all of the brilliance that they acquire if they're not rooted in the knowledge of self? So we don't teach our young people that Africa is their home. We teach them that the planet is their home. But we chose Africa because Africa was a very rich part. But we knew we just didn't want to live here for obvious reasons. So we don't teach them from the perspective that this is his, this is yours, and this is what you got to try and get back. No, it's all yours, original people. Do you understand? It's all yours. But 100%. You had a dip, and now it's time for you to come back and reclaim what's yours. So from that perspective, we have seen that spirituality is the anchor. And without it, we can't really go anywhere. So just to close before I go to my co-host, Trevor Hakeem, who's going to go into the chat. Brother David, how important is spirituality to setting up a global curriculum that we can put at the feet of each parent to take them to where they need to go with their children?
We teach a 8-week Black History course, and the most popular module that we teach is African cosmology. But it's really global African cosmology, because as you rightly said, we migrated out of Africa, some say 125,000 years ago. So India, the Blacks of India have their cosmology, they have their spirituality. And the Blacks of Arabia and the Blacks of Australia. So cosmology, African cosmology is global, African spirituality is global. And we studied reality. And our scientists of old studied reality, and they realized that 90% of reality is unseen. So hence we have this great body of work. Hence we have Zulu cosmology, Igbo cosmology, Yoruba cosmology. You can go on, Kemetic cosmology, Ethiopian cosmology, etc., etc. Really stating, because I was amazed at what you were saying there, Brother Minister, because we started week 1 of our Black History course, where we studied Africa. We said, look, who can tell you when Africa was born? It was born in Pangaea, I think 535 million years ago. I may be wrong here, but I haven't got my notes here. And it was 125 million years ago that it actually separated. But why Africa? Why did the sun beat down on this particular continent that was in the middle of Pangaea? And then why did God place these people, melanated people? So we had to study Africa, the geology of Africa. We had to study melanated humans. Why were we given melanin? And we went into the genesis of melanin, etc. And why it's important is that, we studied the world, we studied nature, and this great body of work that took us 300,000 years to amass, we cannot abandon it.
Right.
Otherwise, we have nothing.
Right.
But this body of work, others have picked at bits of it. And what they have picked at, they have gained something. And they have used violence to destroy us and keep us away. So hence, the books of Ethiopia, where are they? They're in the Vatican, they're in the British Museum, they're in the National Museum of France. The Benin heads, where are they? They're in the British Museum. Our first library printing presses, where are they? They're somewhere in Germany, etc. You see, so we've got to study this body of work that we call global African cosmology, and it should be taught. As you said, we are the rightly, you know, we were the custodians of this planet, and we studied this planet. We studied the herbology of this planet. We studied the stars. We used the moon as a clock. We used the sun as a clock. We produced solar literature, etc. So once you immerse a child and adults, because when we run this course, it's transformational to the adults because they've not heard this. They don't know about the precision mind and the cosmic mind of Zulu cosmology, you know. And once you embrace all of this, it transforms you. And as you rightly said, you teach this to a young child. They grow up with so much self-confidence and a responsibility to their own community and the earth. Our environmentalism is different to what, you know, we're not talking about green environmentalism. You know, we're talking about the environmentalism of the whole cosmos because we wrote about the whole cosmos.
See,
I'm going to stop there, sorry.
I love it. So what we need to do, I'm going to come to you now, Brother Trevor Hakeem, so we can go into the audience and whatnot. But what we need is really to start with a week away, where we need to go somewhere for a week to start formulating this curriculum. Because as I'm listening to you, Brother David, I'm getting flashbacks on when we would teach our babies the significance of every number. What does 0 mean? What does 1 mean? What does 2 mean? What does 3 mean? What does 4 mean? What is 5, 6, 7, 8, 9? I'll never forget when I was teaching my son, and when I used to teach a class on mathematics, and that number 9 we were taught is an irrepressible number. 9 planets in the universe, 9 months that a woman carries a child before it comes to term. 9, the irrepressible number. So whenever you look at 9, when you multiply it against itself, you always come back with 9. So I used to teach the class, you know, that you can really grade your own ability to know whether your answers are right, because 9 plus 9 is 18, right? So you had that 1 and the 8, you get a 9. 3 times 9 is 27, right? You add the 7 and the 2, you get a 9. 4 times 9 is 36, right? You add the 6 and the 3, you get a 9, right? 9 times 9 is 81, right? You add the 8 and the 1, you get 9. So 9 is an irrepressible number. So it's more than just, you know, teaching mathematics. You're really teaching science along with it. And the methodology in which you, and the rhythm and the rhyme in which you teach it will determine the level of retainment where young people are concerned. Because once you teach it like that, no one's going to forget it. You know, so in moving away from this curriculum that is really oppressive to our mind, because I can tell you, when I went to school, I didn't dislike it. I hated it. It was torture. It was torture. I hated all my teachers. They were monsters. None of them were inspirational to me. I remember having a double history class, and I must have been 13. And before I went into the history class, I had a conversation with myself that if you go into this class, your brain is going to explode. And that was the first time I never went to a class. I went through it because the teacher was so boring and he was so weird looking that I couldn't extract nothing from him. And to put our children in front of weirdos who are boring and to expect excellence from them is us sending them down the road into mental health disorders. You're following me, in my opinion. So I just wanted to close out this session with that. And I've got to go to Brother Trevor Hakeem, who's going to go to the audience and come to yourselves in the chat room. And we're going to try and raise more questions for the panelists and see if we can get as many answered today. So over to you, brother.
Thank you, Brother Minister. So now, for those of you that want to pose a question or a quick statement and engage live with our panelists, you can go to your control panel. Depending on what device you're using, you'll see a series of 4 dots, or you'll see the word more. press on that, you'll get a drop-down menu, and then you can put up your icon of the hand, will recognize you, will unmute you, and then you'll be able to engage with the audience. Sister Maureen, I'm coming to you now. So you can unmute. Go ahead, Sister Maureen.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for a very, very useful discussion. I'd like to hopefully quickly get through some of these points. The end goal in any education of a child is to make sure that they know that they are God. They are God, and there is nothing that they cannot do. But the problem with that statement is that it sounds as if we're saying that they don't need to have access to that Godship, because they do. And we don't teach them that. We can teach them we can teach them about the universe, and we can teach, but we don't teach them about who they are. And they really must know who they are. Once a child knows who they are, that is, I am God, they have access to all of the information that's out there. And I'll give an example of this, because we have it and we see it, but we don't recognize. There are children that come into the world and they are gifted. They don't need anyone to teach them. They are gifted, and that natural gift comes from within. And it's because what their gift is with them know what that is. So our job as guardians is to unlock in every single child that Godship. So the end game has got to be, the end goal, sorry, has got to be, make them know that they are God, and then give them the tools which allows them to access that Godship. Now, that's not what we do. We want to educate them by sending them to school and teaching them ABC. That does not teach them who they are. That does not give them the tools that they will require in order to be successful and to live in the world. So I'm going to say that's just one of the points I wanted to make. I've got lots more, but I understand and appreciate that there are other people that wish to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Maureen.
Thank you, Sister Maureen. Any panelists want to have a quick response to that before I move on?
I think it's pretty self-explanatory. If we can go to the room, go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, it's very empowering when you let children know that they are capable of anything they want to achieve. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Proceed.
When you give children the knowledge, I wouldn't even say the belief, because a lot of children come in and they already know that they can achieve certain things. It's when they're dumbed down and told, no, you're not good enough, you're not supposed to do this now, etc., and you keep delaying when you think that they ought to know something. That's where we have problems. So, and that's the beauty of I'm going back to homeschooling, is that the children do have that opportunity to shine a lot earlier, because they're given the freedom to express themselves as to who they would like to be, where themselves going, and to start working towards it, to dedicate a lot of time and energy towards perfecting that, rather than waiting to perfect that once they've left school or left university or whatever. They can start working on that from a very early age. So for me, the spirituality and adding that, but sometimes, as you said quite wisely, the children shouldn't need to go to somebody else to learn that. This is to be something for the family. So the education is wrapped around not just the child, but the whole family, because there's some parents who do need that help to give them the confidence in order to deliver or to work with that as a family. So this is where the family therapy is also important.
And isn't that a part of the problem is, as we're trying to construct or reconstruct an educational curriculum that will cater for the needs of our children, do we not also need to educate our children as to engaging in high-level science known as sexual procreation, and making sure that before we continue to populate our community with children that we're not prepared educationally or academically to raise, that we also, as a part of our curriculum, teach our young people the importance of understanding the effects of reproducing life and being prepared to actually add value to the community, as opposed to, you know, burdening the community with children that you don't have the ability to actually educate or finance. Brother Rio?
Yeah, I think this kind of ties in with what Brother David was saying as well. Yeah, it's like what a teacher should be doing. Like, a teacher shouldn't be just seen as someone who's just in the classroom. A teacher should be seen as someone inspirational and someone that also educates and is a role model to the wider community. That even and should be like a team with the parents. They should even learn from the teachers as well. So there needs to be this kind of like inclusive community thing to happen with the education. It can't be seen as two separate things. It can't be seen as, oh, your parents, you do what you have to do at home. It should be like a team effort.
Absolutely.
So like a good example, yeah, because I know some people that were when they get seen as good, because I used to do boxing and football. So I know some people that when people like parents and coaches see very talented footballers or boxers, they will straight away create a team around them that's going to like life develop them to become the next people. So that child will have an agent, that child will have a manager, like a health and wellness like person, and the parents all supporting them at that one child. So that child now feels like, you know, I've got an entire team that's here just for me to get to my goal in life. You know what I'm saying? So this is the kind of like thing that all children need to have a system like this in place for. So it has to have this collaborative community thing, and in order for that to happen. So yeah, we need to remove the barriers from education, and community needs to become one thing. Like you can think about as well, like for example, you think about a rabbi, yeah. So like a rabbi, that person is a community figurehead. It's not just a teacher. That word can be translated as teacher, but that person is also somebody that other adults respect and are inspired by, and they will look to them for advice and counseling on
Absolutely.
other matters.
Absolutely. Thank you, Rio. I got to go to Sister Vivi. You've been patient for a long time. You're on mute.
Sister Vivian, you can now unmute yourself.
Lovely. Thank you for this, everyone. It's really helpful. I want to go back to Kay's point about the family. And I think the bulk of education happens in the family. And I think we have a responsibility to ensure that we have healthy families. And it is their responsibility, that the responsibility of the family to actually provide children with spiritual instruction. Yeah. So, and also coming out of that will be culture. So I think it's important that we promote our families. We talk about the value of our families. You know, that is a building block of our society and our community. And without that, you know, we don't have foundation. So we need to actually promote families, healthy families. That's where culture and the instructions around spirituality will come from.
So is that a part of the problem then, panelists? We'll come to you, Maestro, next. Is that a part of the problem, Dr. Olnett, is that we're sending our children to school to learn things that really is the responsibility of the parent?
Yeah.
Is that a major part of the problem?
Yeah.
It is. But I would say that we need to support families and parents with that.
Let me stop there. Let me stop you there, please. Because we've got to determine what we're going to do. Mm-hmm. Are we going to teach or are we going to support? Because if it's support, then that's social services, right? That's not the educational system. Because if I'm a teacher and what I do is teach, I'm not there to support, I'm there to teach. So if you need support, then that's a whole different department, is it not?
No. So if we
So
support,
teachers now must also
so,
be supporters
okay.
of children.
So if we support parents by giving them access to courses to learn about all of those things around spirituality and faith and culture, and more importantly, or equally as importantly, learning how to teach that to their children, because not everyone can teach.
But Dr. Orne, I've got to stop you because you're meshing everything into one. And that is a big responsibility for a teacher. If I'm a teacher, my job is spirituality, then don't come to me and talk about business because I'm focused on spirituality and vice versa, okay? So if somebody's teaching nutrition, then you can focus on the support. The child gets sick a lot. So the nutritionist, their job is to make sure the child has a healthy diet. Their job is not to teach spirituality or business, even though there is a thread that runs through all of these. So I think it's a little unjust to expect a teacher to be all things to a child, as opposed to the parent taking responsibility for their job, which is to parent first and foremost.
But not all parents can. Not all parents can. Some parents need to be taught how to do that. Some parents need to be taught how to become home educators.
Yes.
And that is my point. So when I talk about support, I'm talking about supporting parents to access education for themselves so that they can learn those skills, so that they can develop, so they can pass that on to their children. Now at MEEP, in our organization, we have a teacher training program, which is specifically developed to teach parents who want to become teachers or teaching assistants who are really committed to creating learning environments in the home. Now, as part of that program, they need to not only have access to the resources around spirituality and culture, but they need to have actual training in pedagogy in how to use that to teach their children. Not all families have that. So that's why I'm saying that we actually need to, we can't just assume that it is the job of
No, you've answered my question. With respect, you've answered my question. The point is that if there is something specialist that somebody needs, then that specialist information is obviously offered. But by way of, if somebody is just a maths teacher, I don't think we can expect that maths teacher now to be responsible for other social issues that they're not necessarily trained, you know, to actually deal with.
Well, I absolutely wasn't saying that at all. Right. My point was about teaching culture and spirituality within the family, and not all parents, not all families have access to that because they didn't get that themselves. Sure. I'm not talking about the social issues around perhaps deprivation or whatever. I'm not talking about the job of social workers. I'm talking about teaching parents to become home educators.
Sure. Perfect. Thank you, brother. And Rio, you wanted to chime in. Let's go back to you, brother.
Yes, fine. Now, I'm a great advocate of enrichment. And, you know, I had actually had a separate enrichment program within my school for parents and older siblings, particularly those who are out of work. And it meant that after school, the parents could come in and tap into any of 4 categories. It could be academic because they needed to catch up in it, because I've always maintained to parents that as soon as your child knows more than you do in any subject area, you've lost that child. Because children are very good at pulling the wool over your eyes. You know that, I've been there myself. So they can tap into something academic, vocational, aesthetic, sport. And so, if number one, you get the support of the parent on board from day one, when they can see that this, whatever you perceive school to be, that they are also getting something out of it. Because don't forget, a lot of parents, some of them, you know, especially those who are born here, have had very negative experiences of school. When you talk to them and they've completely switched off. So if you give them the opportunity to come back in as something that's voluntarily, it is not something that they have to, you know, put on a uniform and come in. They come in and they can benefit from it. So you will get 100% support from those parents coming in, because they can see the benefit of it. And they in turn will help to drive the achievement of their own children. Right?
Okay.
It's just that act is very, very important. Yeah.
Thank you. We've only got about 10 minutes left. So Brother Hakeem, we can go through some of these questions that, particularly from those who haven't asked the question. Let's
to be honest with you, I think most of the points actually that's come up in the chat room have been covered.
Okay. So we had a hand, Brother Maestro. I hope I'm saying it right, Maestro.
No, there was no hand that went up from that person.
Yeah, he's in the chat. I can see him now. Let's unmute him. Mindsto, Maestro. Go ahead, sir.
Greetings, Minister Mohammed. Can you hear me?
I can hear you very clearly. Thank you.
And a massive love to everyone. At this late stage, all I can say is that I've been involved in developing an ultra-ambitious curriculum to replace the national curriculum. So far, the curriculum has answered all the questions that's being answered, and that's being put forward. And because of the late time, maybe I can take one question about this particular design, considering the time. I was hoping to get in sooner. That is why I mentioned that in the chat room. But yes,
please ask the question.
Yeah. Have I got a question?
Yeah, please ask it.
No, I don't have a question. What I wanted to say is to present the work I've done on this ultra ambitious curriculum that I believe can replace the national curriculum and answer all the questions that's being put forward.
Okay.
Today.
Well, thank you, brother. If it's in the chat, then we have access to it. So thank you for that, Brother Rio.
I just wanted to say to Brother Maestro, like if you could put your details, okay, and then we can arrange a day to go through your curriculum. And I mean, I think at the end of this, I'm just putting this out there. I think we all should become in one group. So everyone's ideas, what they've got for the curriculum and what they've written, and we can all analyze it together, and then we can move from there. You know, because I know that a lot of people, even myself, I've written the curriculum. So I know that there's a lot of people that have already done stuff. So we need to see it all together and analyze it, and then we can move forward from there. So first thing, we need to get everyone's details. So I'll put the Brother Maestro, you put your details in the chat.
I will do that now. I also want to add that for the last 32 years, I've been working as an educational psychologist. So I've been compressing all of that into the particular curriculum I'm talking about.
Okay, my brother, thank you very much. So, Miata, I'm just going to go to the closing remarks, brother.
We are going to be making those announcements at the end.
We are, yeah.
So individual panelists don't need to take that up. That's okay.
Exactly. So what we're going to do now is just go to quick closing remarks, and then I'm going to pass it over to my co-host. So Miata, if you can give me your closing remarks, please, because time has just ran away from us, please.
Sorry, apologies for switching on my mute, struggling there. To do with spirituality, I wanted to add, obviously we spoke about leadership and how it builds confidence. One of the other functions of spirituality is to pass on memory. And we do that through ceremony and celebration. And so that's another really important aspect of how spirituality within our curriculum can support our children. I guess in closing, it would be to offer my services to this curriculum would be around creating content, because what I feel a lot still exists within the Black community is a mindset that accessing Black institutions, particularly we're talking about educational ones now, is that there's a sense that there's sort of losing out or not having the same amount of standard that is offered from other communities. And I think that's a challenge for people within the media to be able to communicate effectively that that's not the case, that there's lots of effort and energy within the Afrocentric community in terms of education that are providing a really high standard. And over the next year, 2 years, that's going to be where I'm going to put my energy, that creating content that's engaging and competitive with all the clutter and noise that's already out there when we're trying to find institutions that best serve us.
Thank you. So I'm going to ask you, everybody, if you could just give me 30 seconds of just closing remarks, what you could, as Sister Miata did, just let me know what you can contribute to this global national curriculum. Go ahead, Brother Rio.
Yes, so what I can contribute is obviously I've written a curriculum already, so and I'm really open to collaborative team effort. So I just want to be able to work with everyone and just to like set. I'm very like meticulous as well with timing. I want us to like make a schedule of what our goals are and plan forward. I'm really good at doing that. I do graphics design and that as well. So if you need any flyers and all this type of stuff done, website, all this kind of stuff.
Very good.
I'm good at that stuff as well. I've got a good network behind me as well. So, and they've all got their skills. So you can have access to that whole bubble. That's what I can bring to the table.
Fantastic. Thank you, brother. So glad we met today. Sister Kay?
Right, I think what is most prudent is that we need, right now, you know, I'm learning of various different pockets of excellence in the community, and all of this needs to be under one umbrella. You know, and when we have forums like this, it makes it even more important and more prudent. So if we can get all of the, you know, together so that we're under one overarching body organization that you can tap into for any of those things, so that we don't have to be going too far to look for anything. So I think that's most important. If we get the details of everyone who's interested, and we just pool that information together so that it's easily accessible for all.
Fantastic. Thank you, Kay.
Sorry, can I just interrupt with what?
No, you cannot interrupt. We're in session here.
I just wanted to say that there are organizations like ADPAC who are based in London who can take on a role like that, because to put all of this under one roof is a huge undertaking.
Yeah, we have a plan for it, Miata.
I will put that into.
We have a plan.
Yeah, I'll put that into.
We have an umbrella. We have an umbrella. and it's not what's her name? What's the singer's name? But anyway, so Dr. Ornette, closing remarks, please.
As well as content, and which obviously has to include culture and spiritualities of our mother continent, we actually need to have a course or a training program that trains up our teachers, our parents and teachers, to be able to use that content. So at MEEP, we would be able to contribute to teacher training programs, particularly in Ubuntu, which kind of encapsulates all of what we were talking about today.
Fantastic, thank you. And Rush Hoshing, I'm going to extend to you a courtesy of 30 seconds to give us some of your closing remarks, because you injected some nice fire, but 30 seconds, my brother.
Well, Honorable Minister, my beloved brother, and all others on host, blessings to you all, and it was a wonderful reasoning. But I will say to you, remember, our family was destroyed, and the creation of our children. When the woman tells us she's pregnant, she's missed her month, both parents comes together, and from the womb, we created a godchild. So from the womb, every sounds you make, every discussion you discuss, once a child is in the woman, the child hears it. So from the womb, my sister and brothers, we now have to start from the womb that transcends to when that water is broken and that child's come into this earth, that child's come into an environment of a God and a goddess present. Once you can install that in our children before the age of 4, 5, you will prepare them for anything that they've got to encounter in this earth, because our spirituality defines all faculty of development, all faculty of intellectual knowledge, and who we belong to. And so long as it's in you, you cannot sell out your people.
Fantastic.
So that is my comment, my brother, because everyone has spoken about everything which is wonderful.
Fantastic. Now you know well that once you start going down that spiritual road that you just went on, you know you couldn't finish that in 30 seconds.
No, I could not. I could
not. So before I go to Brother Trevor Hakeem, I'm going to ask everybody to give our panelists and our special guest from Jamaica, Brother Paulus, Rush Ocean, a big round of applause. Thank you, everybody. So with closing remarks now and announcements, please receive our co-host, Brother Trevor Hakeem.
Thank you. If we unmute Sister Nkosazana, she's from South Africa. We have to give the sister a few minutes, sir, because if you remember from our previous community question time, she was one of the panelists and a task was set regarding helping to collect old devices that we no longer need. Right. And if there could be a charity set up for our people in the townships, for our youth in the townships, will be able to receive these devices for educational purposes. So, sister, are you there?
Hi, everybody. My name is Nkosazana Ndlovu. I'm from South Africa. I run an educational institution that supports the underprivileged children in the more, I'll say, semi-urban areas, that's in the townships in South Africa, and in the rural areas as well. Our aim is to support and to unleash education and obviously to bridge the divide where we find that in the more affluent areas there is privilege and they don't have the same privilege. So they have a challenge to access to resources, access to technology, access to even the education levels are actually not the same. So my intention is to bridge that gap and to allow some form of equity in education. The last time that I was here, we were speaking on homeschooling, and I was talking as well on homeschooling and what the challenges are that we're facing in our country, particularly during the lockdown, and what the children are not able to do effectively as the children in the more urban or more privileged areas, whether black or white or whatever color. So I was stating just briefly that the challenge that those children have, though they are in public schools, but you find that the challenges with regards to access to data, access to devices, access to even the actual teaching itself, because they're in a lockdown situation, you know, they and some of them are coming from underprivileged homes. They don't have all the goodies that, you know, all the other children have. So there is that divide. You know, it shouldn't be, because, you know, the state ideally should provide all that for the people, but unfortunately it's the reality. So I run an NGO with the intention of actually assisting in that space. So last time I was here, I think some colleagues in the platform had committed to probably find a way to support in any way possible, not funds as such, but maybe take devices, and they can be either new or secondhand, that we can distribute to via the database of the schools to those children that are in lockdown, but unfortunately are not able to have education online, because obviously that's the way to go. So it was just that, it was not something that came from me. I think it was something that was raised by the platform to offer some form of support, and any donations anyway is actually welcome, because it's you know, it's a lot of children, and you know, whatever we get we actually use, and we can actually write down the details of the people that have actually donated to us, and then we can be transparent in that process and be able to administer that and be able to say we actually received ABC and we were able to utilize it in this area. So many number of kids, and these are the contacts, even parents, etc. So that was the intention for me to come today, or just to actually say that I had put my details on the chat, both my business email as well as my private email as well. I think I can also share my cell phone number as well on the chat for anybody who wants to get in touch with me should you be interested. Yeah, so basically that is all. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Sister Nkosazana. And just so people know, community question time is not just a talk shop, where it's not just about being a talk shop. So this was the plan of action of this charity work that came out of our home education community question time. But just before I say the last thank yous, Brother David Simon, please, sorry that we didn't come to you. So please, can you also give any closing statements, Brother David Simon?
Right. Okay. Well, firstly, it's a real honor to be on this panel. As I mentioned, we've been going for 34 years, and during that time, so that you don't have to keep reinventing the wheel, what we found is that when we started, there weren't the resources that we required. So we produced a number of books, 37 in total, based around how to lock your child's genius. So these resources are for the community. We wrote them for the community. What we can contribute to this project is our experience, is our resources. We do teacher training in Africa, the Caribbean, etc. So hopefully we can make a contribution to this great project. Thank you.
Please accept my apologies, David. I totally got caught up in the moment. So
no, that's okay. I've heard about you. It's okay.
Thank you, Brother David. So if anyone wants to be involved, contribute, be proactive in our Ministry of Education, this will be the umbrella that we were speaking about earlier. Everyone that's been able to be online today, everyone that's been able to interact and register at this event, you would have come across the promotional material, which has the contact details on there. So there's an email address, mail@noi.org.uk. There's also a contact number. Use either of those, get in contact with us. We will put you on the mailing list. I will personally communicate with you. I will keep you updated on future Ministry of Education events so we can put all these actions forward. Panelists will also be sending me their information, all of their links, and we'll be able to move forward with a plan of action from there. So please use the contact information that was on the promotional material for today, and I will get in contact with you. I just want to give some last thank yous. I want to thank Black History Studies, Brother Mark Simpson, Sister Charmaine Simpson. Thank you so much for your support. Also, please use their service, Black History Studies. Also want to thank Sister Debbie from Black British Parent, Brother Otis, who is also from TAP. Big up to Brother Otis. Thank you so much for your support for this event. Also Global African Congress. And we also want to thank Brother Terry from Black Eyes TV that supports and broadcasts the live streaming of our events. And I want to thank all of the NOI technical support team and also the Ministry of Information and Promotional team of the NOI, Nation of Islam. Thank you so much.
Thank you, dear brother. And all what's left for me to do is thank all of the panelists and thank all of you in the Zoom room for making this Sunday afternoon a memorable one. And we hope and look forward to you contributing to the Ministry of Education so that we can deliver a curriculum that has global implications based upon a spiritual grounding that we can all direct our children and direct our people towards. Thank you. Have a happy Sunday. God bless. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you.
Okay.
So I actually toured with him for 7 years, and really got a chance to like dig in and
no one can deny that I've got the qualification.